Think about this. How many men wasted years in relationships that were doomed from day one simply because they ignored the warning signs? They confused quick intimacy with love. They mistook attention for loyalty, and they never stopped to ask if they were truly different or just another name in a long list. That's how men get broken. That's how they lose confidence and self-respect. But you don't have to repeat their mistakes, because those signs are there, waiting to be recognized, and once you know them, you'll never waste your time again. I'm going to walk you through 7 signs that reveal how many men have been in her bed. And the first one is the most dangerous because it hides in plain sight. Number 1. Comfort with physical closeness. A woman who has walked through too many doors of intimacy rarely pauses before stepping into another. That hesitation, that delicate barrier of modesty, is usually a sign of genuine attraction and respect for the newness of a connection. When it's absent, when everything feels too fast, too easy, too familiar, that should make you stop and look closer. Think about it. Most women, when they truly value the man in front of them, approach closeness with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. It's not fear, it's the natural tension that gives intimacy its meaning. But a woman who has repeated the same scene again and again loses that spark. What used to feel unique now looks mechanical, almost rehearsed. She sits too close too soon. Her hand brushes your arm as if she's done it 100 times before. And her conversations about intimacy sound strangely technical, like she's describing a procedure rather than a personal moment. To an untrained man, this can look like confidence. He might even flatter himself, thinking, she must be so comfortable with me already. But here's the truth. Trust doesn't bloom instantly. Real trust is built in layers, through patience, through gradual vulnerability. When a woman skips that process, it isn't accelerated romance, it's repetition. You're not experiencing something rare. You're watching a pattern she's already lived many times. This matters because that missing pause, the one that should make your heart beat louder, isn't just about shyness. It's about emotional weight. When a woman no longer carries that sense of novelty into closeness, she's telling you silently that intimacy has been stripped of its deeper meaning. What should be a sacred exchange has been downgraded to routine. Ask yourself, does she treat physical contact as a casual gesture, or does she let it build with genuine anticipation? If it feels transactional, if it feels like she's flipping through a well-worn script, then you're not the main character. You're just another scene in a long sequence. The danger is subtle, but real. Men who misread this sign often invest their hearts into someone who can never meet them with equal depth. They confuse quick access with strong connection. And when the novelty is gone for her, commitment will never arrive for you. So pay attention. The woman who rushes closeness is not showing maturity. She's showing history. And history, when ignored, has a way of repeating itself, this time at your expense. Number 2. Emotional walls always up. You can touch her hand, you can kiss her lips, but you can't get past the invisible wall around her heart. A woman who has lived through too many short connections often learns to protect herself by separating physical closeness from emotional depth. To you, it may feel like a contradiction. She lets you in physically, but when you try to reach her soul, the door stays locked. This isn't random. It's the result of repetition. Moments where she gave too much, felt the sting of loss, and decided to never fully expose herself again. Over time, that defense becomes second nature. She'll smile, laugh, and even seem affectionate, but something in her energy feels withheld. You tell her a story about your fears, your ambitions, or your pain, and her response sounds polite but shallow. She nods, she listens, but she never gives back the same level of vulnerability. That imbalance drains a man. Because relationships grow when two people risk emotional exposure together. But when she has trained herself to avoid it, you become the only one carrying the weight of intimacy. In conflict, it becomes even clearer. Instead of working through problems, she'll dodge them. Maybe she changes the subject, cracks a joke, or walks away entirely. It looks like she's avoiding a fight, but the truth is harsher. She's avoiding connection. And here's the hidden danger. Her distance isn't about you. It's not because of something you did wrong. It's a habit carved from her past. Each unfinished relationship left behind a scar that now functions as armor. The more scars, the thicker the armor. By the time you meet her, she may be so practiced at emotional withdrawal that you never get a chance to see who she truly is. For a man seeking something real, this creates an exhausting imbalance. You invest emotional energy, you open up, you try to build trust, but her response never matches yours. The result is frustration, doubt, and eventually erosion of your own confidence. The lesson here is simple but critical. Don't ignore emotional distance just because physical closeness feels good. One without the other is a trap. If she's quick to touch but slow to reveal, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. And that performance will end the moment she decides to exit the stage. Pay attention to how she handles vulnerability. A woman who always keeps her emotional walls up is telling you, silently but clearly, intimacy for her is a place she knows by heart, not a truth she wants to share. Number 3, a disproportionate male social circle. Look closely at who surrounds her. A woman's social circle is never random. It reveals where she seeks her validation and where she invests her energy. When you see a woman with an unusually large number of active male friends, it's not just a social quirk. It's a window into her patterns. To the untrained man, this may look harmless. She just gets along better with guys, you tell yourself. But ask yourself this. Why does she avoid building deep, lasting friendships with other women? The ones who would demand emotional reciprocity, vulnerability, and accountability. Instead, she chooses the easier path, keeping men orbiting around her, each offering attention, each providing validation, each quietly competing for her focus. Her phone lights up constantly. Different names, different conversations, but the tone is consistent. Admiration, banter, subtle flirtation disguised as friendship. And when you ask about it, she'll tell you they're just friends. But the frequency, the intimacy, and the energy she gives those connections tell another story. For many of these men, friendship is only the cover. Some have been closer than they admit. Others are waiting for their chance. Here's what you need to understand. Constant male validation becomes a safety net. It reassures her. It props up her self-image, and it keeps her from ever feeling the sting of loneliness. If one relationship ends, she doesn't have to sit in the silence or face herself. She already has an army of men waiting to fill the gap. That's not security, that's dependency. The danger for you is obvious. In a relationship, exclusivity isn't just about avoiding betrayal, it's about focus. A woman who constantly leans on male attention divides her energy. She never gives you the full weight of her emotional commitment because part of her identity is tied to the crowd of admirers in the background. You're not her anchor. You're just the current priority. And here's the harsh truth. A man who accepts this dynamic is agreeing to uncertainty. He's choosing a life of questioning whether he's truly the priority or just another option. That insecurity will eat at you, no matter how strong you think you are. A balanced social life includes both men and women, but a life tilted heavily toward constant male companionship is not balance. It's a red flag. It tells you she's trained herself to survive on external approval, not on genuine connection. Remember this. The woman who surrounds herself with men isn't just friendly. She's built her identity around being desired. And when someone's worth depends on endless validation, no single relationship will ever be enough. Number 4. Closeness as currency. Not every gesture of affection is real. Some women, after enough experience, learn that closeness isn't just about attraction. It can be used as a bargaining chip. Over time, she discovers that physical affection can bend a man's decisions, soften his resistance, and even silence his questions. And once that lesson is learned, intimacy becomes less about connection and more about control. Picture this. The night before she asks for something significant, she's unusually sweet, affectionate, and attentive. It feels special, almost too perfect. But then you notice a pattern. The timing of her warmth is never random. It coincides with what she wants. And when she's displeased, the switch flips. She withdraws, goes cold, leaves you wondering what you did wrong, until you give in just to restore harmony. That's not love. That's negotiation. The psychology here is brutal. From a young age, women are aware of the power their presence carries. But repetition sharpens that awareness into a strategy. Instead of closeness being a gift, it becomes leverage. She knows that a man, especially one who craves peace and affection, will adjust his behavior to earn her warmth back. She can punish by withholding, reward by giving, and in doing so, she turns the entire relationship into a power game. This is dangerous because it confuses you. You start to question whether her affection is genuine or calculated. Every touch, every kiss, every intimate moment becomes suspicious in your mind. You can't fully relax because you're never sure if it's about desire or about control. That doubt erodes trust, and when trust dies, the relationship rots from within. Here's the hardest truth. Once intimacy is used as currency, the relationship has already shifted into imbalance. You're not her equal anymore. You're a subject in her economy of rewards and punishments. And in that economy, she always wins because she controls the one thing you deeply crave, closeness. For a man who values himself, this is a red line. Because no matter how attractive, no matter how tempting, a woman who weaponizes affection will never give you a love that is free and genuine. She's too invested in the game. Remember, real affection doesn't need a condition. When she uses closeness to get her way, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. And the cost of staying in that deal is always higher than you realize. Number 5. Surgical reading of the male mind. Some women develop a skill so sharp it feels almost supernatural. They can read a man's emotions, detect his insecurities, and exploit his instincts with surgical precision. At first glance, it looks like empathy. She seems to understand you better than anyone ever has. She knows when to compliment you, when to appear vulnerable, and even when to pull away to make you chase harder. But don't mistake this for a rare connection. What you're witnessing is a craft, perfected through repetition. Think about how skills are built. You don't become fluent in a language by accident. You practice, fail, correct, and refine. The same is true here. Through countless experiences with men, she's learned which words melt defenses, which silences create tension, and which gestures trigger your protective instinct. To you, it feels natural. To her, it's strategy. Here's how it plays out. She notices your insecurities about your appearance, your career, or your past. At the exact moment you doubt yourself, she delivers the right compliment, not to truly uplift you, but to make you dependent on her approval. Later, when she needs something, that well-timed validation becomes the hook that pulls you into compliance. It's not love, it's conditioning. The brilliance of this tactic lies in how invisible it feels. A man wrapped in this dynamic doesn't see manipulation. He sees connection. He tells himself, "She just gets me." Meanwhile, she's running a playbook she's rehearsed on others. You're not the first to be disarmed by her timing, and you won't be the last. And here's the cruel twist. Even when you start to suspect the game, breaking free isn't easy. Why? Because she targets your ego. Every man wants to feel special, understood, and admired. When she delivers that in measured doses, you become hooked. It feels too good to walk away, even when you sense the strings attached. This level of manipulation is dangerous because it's sophisticated. It doesn't rely on open demands or obvious pressure. Instead, it blends tenderness with control so seamlessly that you doubt your own judgment. You convince yourself it's love, when in reality, it's leverage. The lesson is clear. If her ability to read you feels too perfect, if her timing is always flawless, stop and ask yourself whether this is connection or calculation. Because a woman who has mastered the male mind can keep you trapped in a shallow relationship far longer than you ever intended. And by the time you realize it, she's already moved on to her next performance. Number 6. No shame about the past. Pay close attention to how she talks about her history. For most women, the past carries weight. Even if they don't share every detail, there's usually a sense of reservation, a recognition that intimacy is meant to be private, selective, and significant. But a woman with a long trail of short connections often treats her past like a casual story. No hesitation, no filter, sometimes even pride. She might laugh as she recounts previous relationships, or casually describe intimate experiences as if she were talking about a weekend trip. She may even frame it as something positive. A learning experience. Just having fun, or part of figuring myself out. To an untrained ear, this sounds like honesty, freedom, or openness. But underneath, it signals something else entirely. Intimacy has lost its exclusivity. Think about what that means for you. If she doesn't hold her past with a sense of gravity, then what makes her connection with you any different? If the previous chapters of her life were just casual episodes, how can you be sure your story with her will be treated as anything more? The man who ignores this sign risks investing his heart into someone who no longer views commitment as rare or sacred. And when you question her about it, notice her reaction. Instead of acknowledging the weight of the past, she might become defensive, flipping the script by calling you insecure or outdated. That response doesn't come from strength. It comes from deflection. It's a way of avoiding accountability while normalizing behavior that erodes long-term trust. Here's the psychology behind it. When repetition strips away the emotional meaning of intimacy, what's left is a narrative that redefines the past as harmless. By reframing it as experience, she shields herself from judgment, but she also reveals her value system. And values are what determine the future of a relationship. For a high-value man, this isn't about moralizing or shaming. It's about risk assessment. If she treats her past with indifference, then exclusivity in the present loses its power. You can't build a fortress of trust on a foundation that's already been weakened by casualness. Remember this. The way she handles her past isn't just a reflection of what happened. It's a blueprint of how she'll treat the bond you're trying to build. If she laughs at history, don't be surprised when she laughs at loyalty. Number 7. A short, repetitive relationship history. Patterns don't lie. When you look at someone's history, you're not just seeing what happened, you're seeing how they operate. And a woman with a trail of short, intense, and repetitive relationships is showing you more than just failed attempts at love. She's revealing a cycle that has become her norm. Here's how it usually looks. Things move fast. The connection feels electric at the beginning, almost overwhelming. Within days or weeks, it seems like she's all in. Constant communication, strong affection, future talk. You're swept up in the rush, believing you found something rare. But then, just as quickly as it started, it begins to unravel. The spark fades, the distance grows, and before you even process what's happening, she's gone. And often, she's already with someone new before the dust settles. This isn't coincidence, it's conditioning. Repeated cycles of short-term involvement train her to thrive on novelty rather than depth. The adrenaline of a new connection gives her the high she craves. But when the excitement levels out, when the relationship requires effort, patience, and true emotional investment, she checks out. It's not that she can't love, it's that she hasn't learned how to sustain it. For the man caught in this cycle, the damage is real. You're left wondering what you did wrong, questioning yourself, when in reality, the script was written long before you entered the scene. You were simply the next chapter in a book that doesn't have room for long stories. And unless she makes a conscious decision to break the cycle, nothing will change. Here's the deeper danger: when relationships overlap, when one ends and another begins almost instantly, she robs herself of the reflection needed to grow. No lessons learned, no real healing, just constant motion. And a life built on constant motion never settles into stability. The psychology here is clear. Without space to process pain or confront her own patterns, she repeats them. And if you ignore the evidence, you'll end up as another entry in a list of quick highs and abrupt exits. Ask yourself, are you willing to be a temporary thrill, or are you looking for something lasting? Because if her history is a string of brief flames, the odds are high that you'll be next. The bottom line is simple. Don't dismiss patterns as bad luck. They are warnings, and when a woman shows you a history of repetition, believe it. It's not your job to fix it. It's your job to protect yourself from becoming another predictable ending. Now you've seen them. 7 signs that speak louder than words. They're not just quirks or habits. They're patterns, etched into behavior by repetition, choices, and history. And if you know how to read them, you'll see the truth long before the mask slips. Understand this. These signs are not about judging women. Every person has a past and every person has a story. But for a man who values his time, his energy, and his future, the past is not irrelevant. It's predictive. It tells you what you can expect tomorrow. Ignore it, and you'll pay the price with your emotions, your peace, and sometimes even your dignity. So now the choice is in front of you. You can close your eyes, fall for the surface, and repeat the same cycle of disappointment. Or you can open them wide, recognize the red flags, and decide that you will no longer invest in relationships built on shallow ground. The difference between men who keep losing and men who rise above is not luck. It's awareness. Ask yourself, how many times have you ignored these warnings just because attraction pulled you in? How many times did you mistake intensity for commitment or routine for trust? If the answer is too many, then let this be the moment you draw the line. Because a high-value man doesn't beg for love. He doesn't chase illusions. He observes, he learns, and he chooses wisely. And when he does, he protects not just his heart, but his future. So here's what I want from you now. If these signs opened your eyes, write in the comments, I see the signs now. That single sentence is your declaration that you refuse to stay blind. Share this with a man who needs to hear it, because silence only keeps him vulnerable. And if you're ready to keep sharpening your understanding of relationships, hit subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. This journey is about reclaiming your power, and it starts the moment you stop ignoring the truth.